Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and just let me sort myself out here for a second, you guys. Oh my goodness. Every time I think I'm ready to go, and I always seem to be messing around in the last few seconds. My apologies. Okay. Here we go. Again, 2 days in a row. We're not off to a good start today, are we? I was going to say I'm having a serendipity free day. And yeah, I'm tripping over myself. Let's try that one more time. Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I was going to say a word, discombobulated, and I couldn't even pronounce it. So I'm still tripping over myself. But you know what? It was a nice, relaxing, slow pace for me today. Something's bothering me here. It was a nice, slow pace for me today. I got a little bit of less listing done. It's not my favorite thing to do, jewelry. My sister's really good at it. She really enjoys doing jewelry. For myself, I love to do housewares, antiques, collectibles. She's the one who likes the sparklies. I only like the money that comes from the sparklies. But, being that particular person when I'm doing my listing, I want to do a good job. So it does take some time to get it done. So I'm optimistic, and I'm going to mention it tonight if we talk. She did go through the listings that I did today and did a little course correction in some of the spelling of the items that I had listed, but that was it. So I'm going to assume she was pretty pleased with everything else. Yeah, so tonight I thought we would just keep it light. Hello, Tammy. Wow, you were on an explore marathon today, weren't you? Holy moly, you went through a lot of my content. It's super appreciated. I want you to know how much I appreciate that you're right delving in a little bit. You're in watching some of those videos that I haven't been into in years. And then when you comment on them and then the thumbnail pops up, I have these reminiscent moments of, oh my goodness, that was so fun, or oh my goodness, I remember that explore. I remember this happening. And lots of times, and especially when I first started out on YouTube, I started out as an urban explorer. If you've never been into any of my other adventures, any of my other playlists, I explore the inside and the outside, and I have numerous videos. I have urban explorers, I have bushcraft videos, I have safety videos, I have my Ontario provincial park tours that I do every year. And these are all in playlists. So if anybody ever wanted to go in and check and see what I'm all about, just like what Tammy is doing here. And hello, Tammy. Thank you so much for coming into my live tonight. Took you away from what was the video you were watching tonight that I took you away from? I know you were watching something. Having my apple juice, and I got my applesauce here. I'm trying to eat better. I'm not concerning myself with sugar content. I'm actually just trying to get some decent food into me. And I've come to realize lately that old wise saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And because I am slow at digesting, I can eat something and it'll still be in my gut the next day. So I tend to do fluids. Applesauce works really well for me. And the idea is to build up good, healthy bacteria in my system. And apples, actually, it's true that saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And I haven't eaten apples for, well, I recent up until recently I've been eating apples more often, but I was never a big apple fan. My favorite fruit, and tell me, Tammy, what your favorite fruit is. I love pears. I really love pears. I love nectarines too. I'm not a big fan of peaches unless it's like in preserves or it's in jam. Only because I don't like that fuzzy stuff on peaches. I don't find it to be enjoyable. Even the feel, I don't like them. But a nectarine, if it's ripe, is almost the same as a peach. So I do like peaches, but oh boy, do I love a good ripe pear. Like really ripe, just before it starts to bruise. That when you bite into it, all the juices just run down your chin and your neck and cover your clothes. I don't care. That's how much I love pears. Let's see what Tammy is saying here. Yes, indeed, Cindy. I did some relaxing and giving me some me time, which is very, very important, Tammy. Very important. After I worked some today, some of the old homesteads I and old schools and those outhouses that are in one of the ghost towns. Yeah, they're I really love my urban explorers. I might go and spend one of those me time days myself and just watch some of those adventures because they were really, really fun. I used to, on my days off from work, I'd hop in my car and I would go off and I would pick different directions from the city each time I went out. Sometimes I would go north, west, east, south, and I wouldn't have a destination. I would just be driving up and down back roads. A few times I did get stuck, but I live in a province that's very caring and very, very kind and helpful. So that when we do get ourselves in those situations, and, there was always somebody to jump in and help me out in a moment. And it's something I really appreciate about the province that I live in is the kindness. We live in extreme climates here. We have very hot summers. We have very, very cold winters on the norm. This winter was fairly cool. It's supposed to warm up in the next few days, but on the norm, we can get down to the minus 40s, minus 50s with the wind chill. And it's gotten into those temperatures this year, which is back to the normal kind of weather. The past 3 years specifically, we have had very mild winters, like so mild, we're not even wearing our scarves and our toques and stuff like this outside. We're just throwing on our winter jackets and off we go, right? Not even wearing snow pants. And I'm grateful that I wear keen boots, boots, because those winter boots are actually rubber boots. So they carry me right through spring too. And I have two pairs of them. And I just picked up a new pair of Keens this week. Brand new pair of Keens, $200. And I picked them up for $8. It was such a score. I'd never been so excited about scores, especially when they were my size. They're not the hikers. I still do need a pair of hikers, but those will come when they will come, right? I'm not concerned about it. Tonight, I thought we'd just keep it a little bit. Oh, I love plums too. Watermelon plums. Yeah, I never thought about the plums. If I was living in British Columbia, plums for sure would be on that list. I remember as a kid being able to crawl out the bedroom window and I would sit in the cherry tree and just eat cherries galore. And, mom would say, give us ice cream pails. And she'd say, go get me some pears, go get me some apples. If you fill them up with huckleberries or blackberries, I'll make you guys a pie. And us kids would be off and we'd be walking the train tracks looking for the blackberry bushes. Blackberries were my favorite berry. We don't grow them here in Manitoba only because the extreme winters, the roots don't fare well to get them into the next season, and they need lots of moisture. And we have very, very dry winters on the norm here. But yeah, plums, oh my goodness, I really do love plums too, especially stewed plums. When we bring those big buckets of fruit home, lots of times my mom would can the plums, and canned plums for breakfast were absolutely just amazing. My mother was a hard worker. She kept us all fed. And I have to appreciate, even though that my mother and I didn't have a very strong relationship, that I have to appreciate how hard she worked for the family, you know. And, one of those things, was baking and canning fruit for us. And we never did go hungry to my knowledge, right? I have traits about myself that sometimes I feel that possibly that I had been starved or something. But that was because I was put on diet so often as a small kid and as a teenager that for me, not having food, being on a diet was like punishment. So when I started working, right, I would buy my own treats, my own food, and that just carried on into my adulthood. So I don't think necessarily that we starved. Yes, when dad had a bad gambling day, which happened often, right? He was a better poker player than going to the casinos and playing the slot machines, but he quite often would lose everything. He even lost a car, a brand new vehicle one time in a poker game. And it was kind of interesting because we always knew when he walked in that door with a 25-pound bag of rice that we were going to be roughing it for a month. I've been working since I was 10 years old. I started off in babysitting, and then I became a weekend foster care worker for a woman who had, oh my goodness, she had a lot of foster kids. They were always running away. Every time her back was turned, they were running away. But it was something that made it so I always had pretty good money as a young teenager. And I would say, I would go on Friday nights to work for this woman, and I would stay there until Sunday evening, and then I would go home. But in that span, I would make 100 or $125. So in the 1970s, right? That was quite a bit of money, especially for a young teenager. And I didn't save anything, right? I didn't have those lessons, on financing. I finally did get the paying jobs. I don't know about you, Tammy, but my first paycheck job was at Wendy's, the very first Wendy's that was ever established in Vancouver. And I remember going for that interview, and I had nervous tics, right? My eyelids would flutter, my lips would my lips would flutter too. And quite often people would call me on it, right? Ask me what that is. And I said, oh, I'm just a little bit nervous. And I remember I didn't think I had a chance of getting that job at Wendy's. And I got it. And I was so excited. And because I had always been a caregiver and a hard worker myself, right? That I always got lots of hours compared to everybody else. So I had great big paychecks. I got a free meal every day. And wow, who doesn't like Wendy's, right? I love Wendy's burgers. And yeah, it's kind of, you kind of brought some memories to me every time you made a comment. And I tried to do it in just one great big batch. I just set some time aside and I just went into it. And every time I saw the thumbnail of what the video was that you were commenting on, Tammy, I just kind of, right, brought back memories of what good times it was in urban exploring. And it's funny too because I could see the episodes of the Urban Explorers. So I was trying to guess how many Urban Explorers. And if you guys don't know what Urban Explorers are, they're abandoned houses and abandoned homesteads and farms and barns and one room schoolhouses and old churches that are abandoned out in farm fields and stuff. And I would go find them and I would film them and explore them, and it was so much fun. And it was my first brand new car that I had gotten, and soon as I got that new car, I was gone. I was out on the road every opportunity that I got. It just gave me so much freedom. I lost my last car that my sister bought for me. And it was her car. Technically, it was her. Well, technically, it was my car. The paperwork was all in my name and everything. But I signed it back to her because she paid for the vehicle, and I she took it back because I took a trip without letting her know. And really, I was supposed to be looking for work and putting a job over my head, but I was so determined, to live the life that I wanted. And I felt, and when I was compelled to, right, just be that runaway, even though my sister's younger than me, she was the matriarch in the family. And like I said, it was her vehicle. And then when I got home from my trip, she just sent her husband over. I signed the papers back to her and she took my car. And then she gave my car to my nephew, who only had it for 2 weeks before he absolutely just totaled it. And that kind of broke my heart too, right? That she did that. But like I said, it was her vehicle. She had every right to do with it as she wanted. And if she had said, give me that car back, I would get it. I would understand. And I gave it. And I tried not to hold it against her, but it was painful, right? When I found myself in situations where I was having a difficult time finding and being able to make content for my audience, and it kind of shut me down a little bit in my building my fort and going for drives out on the back roads and going up north, and it kind of shut me down. And it shut me down on those trips too, which was the most unfortunate because I was having so much. And you actually watched one of those trips I watched or I went on, Tammy. But I was having so much fun because I do explore the inside as well as the outside. And, I wanted to get on the road and I wanted to go to events and networking and, right. And I wanted to hang out with people that I felt had similar interests as I did. And, it's so much different now. I'm just, right. I'm far more into understanding my emotions. And, but for now, it's in that, right, in giving back. And if I had had that vehicle, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to practice my craft every single day. And I've been doing this every single day practically, except for Saturdays, for years now. And in that process, I've gotten so much better. I think I've gotten so much better in what I've done. And I guess Tammy would start to be a good judge of that too, because you have been all the way back to some of my very first videos and some of my very first lives, that you could probably see that progression as I move along, right? Okay, you guys, I think I'm just going to pull a card. Did Eugene make it in tonight? No, no Eugene tonight? Okay, let's see what Tammy says before I go and grab a card. When my brother in law was alive for about 8 years, I got to drive my brother in law to the casino once or twice a month. The casino was 1.5 or 2 hours away. He was so happy to go there. Yeah, I used to be a gambling addict myself. I'm so grateful that I'm not doing that anymore. It destroyed my life. And when we talked a little bit yesterday, about, that not being able, my husband not wanting to have children, that wasn't the only reason our marriage fell apart. That was the main reason. But there were little things that, right, did contribute to that. And gambling was not a little thing, but it was me being sneaky and hiding and trying to shuffle the bills and stuff. And yeah, it put me in a negative state. And remember what I said, once you're in that negative state, you can only be in a negative state, right? And at the same time, those things in life can only manifest in the negative, and it certainly did, and it compounded and it wreaked havoc in my life. And that came from gambling and being able to take those moments to kind of understand where I went wrong when it came to those addictions, those coping mechanisms that we pick up in life, right? That it helped me to understand. It actually helped me to clearly see what I was doing in my life. And then by that time, I had become addicted to being a YouTube creator. So it made it possible for me to give up an addiction. And the first addiction that I gave up that was huge, well, smoking was pretty huge. I got rid of smoking, but I think I gave up smoking before I started on YouTube. Uh, but the gambling, I specifically gave up for YouTube. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford the car payment or the house bills or the gas for the vehicle. And I wouldn't have been able to go out on the road. And the best gift I ever, ever, ever could have given myself was to give me that space. Remember what you were saying tonight, Tammy, about giving yourself some me time. We all need that me time, because in this world that we live in, they want to keep us so hairy, scary in here and so busy in our lives that we don't notice what damage we're actually doing to our lives and the damage that's being done, right, outside of our own specific environment. And people get away with stuff that on the norm they would never get away because we would be paying attention, but because we're not paying attention anymore, because we're so busy, 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 and so compulsed in what we're doing, right? Things are not moving the way that they should be, right? Those 360s, those 180-degree turns, they're happening. They're happening right now. And it is a day and age, right? This age of AI learning has given us a big opportunity to make some humongous movement, not just in our life, but in our communities, in our cities, our provinces, our states, and our countries, and the world in general. And because that work is being done, right? It's being done. Sometimes it's being done in little baby steps so that we don't notice what's going on, or the ones that are trying to keep us in the busy and the hurry scurry don't know that it's being done. That these small changes are happening. They're always happening. And if you really do pay attention, you can see the miraculous, right? Things that are really manifesting when it comes to science and medicine and archaeology. Oh my goodness, they're taking wide steps, right? Geology, they have found in Australia an area that has the second highest amount of gold ever. Trillions and trillions of dollars worth of gold they have found in Australia. Canada also has found some big open space where there is a lot of gold going on too. So these discoveries are happening all the time. And yes, maybe having that abundance of gold just might drive the price of gold down a little bit, right? Because it's like when the computers first came out, they were very, very expensive, right? But as everybody needs computers and laptops and stuff, the price comes down. When computers first came out, they were so expensive, and now you can buy computers for $300 or $400, really good ones too. It's the same thing with our phones, right? Our phones have the same technology. So surprising, has the exact same technology and capability as when they shot the first people up to the moon. Isn't that incredible? And every single person, right? Babies are being born and saying, "Where's my Google Pixel?" Right? And that is absolutely incredible, right? We are, as a small man, making a difference in the world. Everybody has an opportunity to contribute in some way, right? And again, I'm going to say thank you so much, Tammy, for hanging out with me and watching so many videos and keeping me busy in the comments, right? Yeah, it was really interesting to see some of these thumbnails of some of these adventures that I have been. And it makes me desire and it makes me optimistic that we're going to get on the road again and do some more urban exploration, right? Because now, right, all the houses from the 70s, right, possibly from the 80s, they are now becoming abandoned. I truly, for myself, those don't, right? Those don't crank me. But oh my goodness, the old homesteads, right? The old tongue and groove, log log homesteads. I just I just love those. And the old abandoned churches. I love those too, right? I the closest one to the stained glass was that Greek Orthodox church that you went to, Tammy, and I believe they still had some glass in the windows. And I really loved that church, and I was so surprised when I came across those. What do you call those? vestibles, where the priests wear these garbs, and it had like embroidery, just beautiful embroidery over it, but it'd been stompled over so many times, and it had a bird, a dried out bird that had, I guess, warmed up or looked for safety in the garb, and it was just in terrible shape. And I remember I took that vest. It was a long robe, and I folded it up the best that I could. It was pretty crunchy, and I folded it up the best I could, and I grabbed a bag from my car, and I put it in the bag. I didn't know where to take it, but I thought it was so disrespectful that it was just laying there like it was garbage, right? And it was part of the heritage of that church. And I remember hanging it up on a coat hook that was in the lobby of that church. I hope somebody took that as a historical item. Even if they could just cut out some of the embroidery, because I think there were some paintings on it of Jesus and Mother Mary and stuff, and beautiful embroidery. If they were able to just cut those pieces out, they would have been at least frameable, right? Yeah. Okay, you guys. Like I said, I just wanted to keep it light tonight. We went a little heavy yesterday, right? So tonight we're just going to keep it light, and tomorrow's a day off. I don't go online on Saturdays unless it's just to take in conversations on my own, but I don't come in and I don't present in any way. So nobody will see me tomorrow, except I don't think even my sisters tomorrow will see me. I might go for a walk. Like I said, the weather's getting a little bit warm. Okay, you guys. So let's just grab a card tonight. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to just read this last comment here. Is my first paying job was spending the night at our elderly lady's house, Mrs. Simmons, when she lost her husband for 2 years. I remember you telling me about that. I spent the night with her, and she made you breakfast. Yeah, I remember you telling me a little bit about that, Tammy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And here's more. I babysit for free. And my parents told me to babysit our friends' 4 kids for free. That started when I was a young teenager for free. Oh my goodness. Right? I hope they gave you something, like made you dinner or bought you gifts on your days off or something. And, it wasn't your choice, right? Your parents volunteered you. So it would have been nice if that was your choice. And knowing the person that you are, you would have probably said yes anyway. Um, I am fascinated with archaeology a lot. I read articles on finds and places and people and different countries. I love geology too, a lot. Isn't that interesting, Tammy? Yeah, well, now that I know that, then when I have a moment, and maybe in the comments, I'll let you know a couple of my favorite, because I do have some favorites that I do follow because they are on the discoveries, right? They are on the discoveries. Watch some of my, I don't know if I've done any of my mudlarking or my metal detecting explores and posted them. Usually, I think I just did those for myself. We may do some of those explores and adventures this summer. We'll see. Oh no, we won't be doing the metal detecting unless I buy a new one. I sold 2 of my metal detectors. It was a hobby that me and my father did together, was metal detecting, and it's something that carried into my adulthood after he passed away. But I remember I hadn't gone metal detecting for the longest time, so I got rid of my metal detectors. I'm not quite sure if I gave them away or if I sold them. I don't remember. Oh my goodness, my cards are all kind of mixed up. Like I said, it was kind of a slow day today. I just kind of did some listing and just hung out with myself, and yeah. Okay, you guys, let's pick a card. We'll just take the front one. Oh, I love this word. This is a great word. Synthesis. Synthesis is understanding it takes all kinds to make the world. I love this card because it is so true. You know, it's in our diversity. When you said you like history too, I was watching a documentary. It was actually today, and they were talking about one of the theories as to why the Neanderthals went extinct. Right? It's common understanding that possibly that we as Homo sapiens wiped out the Neanderthals. And even for myself, I could have understood that because it was known that the Neanderthals were cannibalistic in some instances, right? So I thought, that would be a threat to another human being, to the Homo sapiens. The Denisovans were going on at the same time, and so I thought maybe that was a possibility, that they were hunted, right? They were taken down because of their way of living, their cultures, right? And today I was watching a documentary, and they were saying through the evidence, because what they do is they do all the genetic tests on them, and then they wipe out all the Homo sapien genes, and they can see where the Denisovans and the Neanderthals genes are in hereditary in us, because we all have like 2% Neanderthals. Some of us believe we have a little bit more than the 2%. But now they're saying that it's a good possibility because it was easy for the women to have these pregnancies and have the hybrid babies between the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals. But for the men, it was a different story, unless it was a warring situation where, the children were born not for want, but just because they could. Um, that it wasn't happening as often, and the men's genes became isolated, and it was the women who actually became the carriers of the next generation, the hybrids, right? And slowly those genes thinned out to the point where, right, there's only about 2% of Neanderthal and Denisovan in us, and then minute of the archaic legacies of the other humans, right? Whether that's Homo erectus or Homo naledi. There's lots of them. They're saying that there was 15 or 20 different human beings at one time, like real human beings, like Neanderthals were human beings, right? The Homo sapiens were human beings, but they gave them different names, just like being Chinese or Mexican or Puerto Rican or Ukrainian or Russian, right? It was kind of like that. But to make, I guess, man feel better about them being wiped out, they kind of made them separate from our species as Homo sapiens. Of course, we are different, but that is evolution, right? What would we look like? What would we be like if we didn't have those Neanderthal and Denisovan genes in us, right? We would be totally different than what we are now. They're actually saying that the blue eyes actually come from the Neanderthal side of humans, and wouldn't that be something not to have blue eyes unless you were what do they call it? When you have the white hair and the white eyes, albinos, unless you had those albino genes in you. And then, right, blue eyes would have been something that was extinct too. Now, these are all theories, but these are theories that are going to be proven or disproven in the future. We have done such huge leaps. They actually found another 7,000-year-old village in Turkey, yeah, in the Middle East somewheres. And they just got the papers out, I think last year, and nobody was even interested in this village. They had to take a helicopter in. There was no small towns, no civilization around. And there was actually some Iron Age graves in the area too. So I guess a lot of the archaeologists had figured that it was an Iron Age village, but it turned out to be Neolithic, right? 7,000 years old. So that's pretty cool. But synthesis, right? And we didn't come off topic because that's exactly, right? Those combinations of different, it takes all kinds to make the world. And we live in a time and age right now where that prejudice, right? That witch hunt for those who do mix outside their cultures. Right now it's acceptable. Now we don't even give it a thought anymore. And I think that's pretty amazing, right? Because if you were to put us back, 30,000 years ago, would we have gone to battle? We're still battling each other, but would we have specifically sought out to battle all these different cultures and call them something other than human? It's quite possible. They've done it, right? They've done it in the past, but I think it's a good thing that we are synthesizing with each other, right? And that's what this word synthesize means. It means it not one thing, but a combination of things to make up something new. It's amalgamation, it's assimilation, and it's a coming together. And this is where we're supposed to be going. This is the direction we're supposed to be going in our evolution. And I'm a big believer that in this moment we are in a serious stage of evolution where we're actually right all messed up, that we're actually going to have these catalysts come into the system, right? And we know who these catalysts are, and we also don't know who some of these catalysts are, but they're out there and they're doing their thing. And just like I'm doing my thing, but I'm not the expert. I'm not that person with the picket signs and the marches and stuff. There are people out there that is their thing. That is their mission, right? I take care of the emotions. I take care of what's going on in the inside, and I appreciate what's going on the outside. I don't dwell in headline news for myself. I'm pretty ignorant, I would have to say, as to what's going on in the world as a whole. I believe if it's important, it'll come across my path, right? I know Donald Trump is president. I know when the weather is going to take a turn. These things find their way, whether it's in conversations, whether something pops up in my screen, or I'm sitting in somebody's conversations or lectures and they mention it themselves, right? And so I don't worry myself about it. I feel that if I was meant to delve deeper, if I was meant to pay attention to the 6 o'clock news, I would be. But in this moment, right, I always seem to have something more important on the go, right? And to each one, our choices. I don't even have a TV, you guys, right? And what I'm doing right now all started with me wanting to be on Big Brother Canada. right? And I didn't have any social media. So I came up with this bright idea. I was going to be an urban explorer because I was urban exploring anyway. I was out on the back roads anyway. So I thought, oh my goodness, that's what I'll do. I'm going to build the following as an urban explorer and then get myself on Big Brother Canada. And I was going to win. Now, I don't think I would win. I'd probably be one of the first persons that they get off the show only because I have a hard time being sneaky that way, right? It's a new trait for me. Remember, I grew up in a dynamic family, and because I was a compulsive gambler, I learned to become sneaky. But because also I practice mindfulness and mindset, right? It's difficult, if not impossible, for me to do that. And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't last a day on Big Brother Canada. Okay, here we go. Synthesis is understanding. It takes all kinds to make the world. I love that. I really do love that. And I love seeing it actually come into realization. We live in that day and age that it was meant to be able to be walked into and not something, right, that makes it so people are outcast or hunted down or witch hunt, right, or made to feel inferior to that, right? I love this word synthesis. It's a great word and it's an important word. Okay. How about if we leave it at that tonight? Thank you so much, Tammy, for coming into my live tonight. For those of you who pop in later, I hope you have an amazing weekend. If you're not coming in on Sunday night, I'm sure we'll see you on Monday. Everybody, have a great night.